Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he was late for a dentist appointment.
Science.
Okay, today we're going to talk about levers. It is one of the simple machines. Levers are one of the simple machines. Okay, now what is a lever? Well, a lever is a bar, a rigid bar that pivots around a fixed point. It pivots around a fixed point, and that fixed point is called the fulcrum. Fulcrum. And a fixed point is just a spot that doesn't move. It's a point that doesn't move. It stays put. So if a bar is a thing, a rigid bar, if a lever is a rigid bar that moves around a fixed point, it would be like this. Imagine this was a stick and this was a fixed point. This stick rotates around that bar. Okay, almost like imagine the hand of a clock rotates. Okay, like that. And there are three classes of levers. First class is when the bar, no, whenever the load, the fulcrum, the first class is whenever the fulcrum is between the load and the effort. Well, what is load and effort? Load is the thing you were trying to lift. Levers help us lift things. So load is the thing you're trying to lift. Effort is the force you're applying, okay, and where you're applying it. So if a first class lever says that the fulcrum, the pivot point, is between the load and the effort, that means that it's between the thing you're trying to lift and where you're applying that force. An example of this would be a seesaw. Okay? This is the spot that it's going to rotate around. It's going to go this way. It's going to rotate around that way. Okay? Imagine this was a box, and you started pushing right here. You started pushing down right here. This would rotate this way around this point. The seesaw would rotate that way around this point. That would be an example of a first class lever because the pivot point is between the load and the effort. Okay? A second class lever is where the load is between the fulcrum and the effort. Okay? So it would be an example would be the load being right here and the effort being right here. Like maybe instead of pushing down, you're pushing up. Okay, and another example is like a wheelbarrow. You have a wheelbarrow, okay, this is where you're lifting, you're pushing up right here, on this point right here, and this is where you got all your sand or whatever, right? This is where you got your sand. Okay, this is the load right here, the thing you're trying to lift. This is the fulcrum, the pivot point, and this is where you're applying the force. This is where the effort is. So that's an example of a second class lever. And then an example of a third class lever. A third class lever is a lever where the effort is between the pivot point and the load. Okay? So an example of this is a shovel. Let's say this is a shovel. Oh, that's a bad shovel. Whatever. Okay, whatever. Let's say that's a shovel. Okay? If the load is right here, we have let's say a big rock right there, and we're trying to lift it, then this means the load is right here, and if I'm moving my arm, this is the handle, and I'm holding it right there, then I'm trying to lift it up like that, the shovel is going to pivot around where I'm holding it. So my hand, the handle, is the pivot point. It's the fulcrum. And this is the load. That means the effort is going to be right here. It's going to be in between the load and the pivot point and the fulcrum. It's going to be on the stick in between. That's where the force is going to be applied. Okay? That's where the effort is. That's an example of a third-class lever. So yes, a lever is a rigid bar that rotates around a point, a fixed point. And that fixed point is called the fulcrum. And there are three kinds of levers. First class is where the fulcrum is in between the load and the effort. A second class lever is when the load is between the fulcrum and the effort. And a third class lever is whenever the effort is between the load and the fulcrum. Okay? So if you need help or watch the video or whatever. But yeah, you can go find levers at home. Stay in school.